Mesdames et messieurs, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Buenas tardes, señoras y señores. Welcome to Sky Talks. This is our second day, seventh session. Congratulations for being here. You don't have to talk about seeing this information on the news or reading it in a journal, but you're here live. For those who have missed past or previous sessions, please make sure to go on YouTube, type in ICAO Sky Talks, and you'll see the full list of the presentations that we have for you. Following our, I want to remind you that we're coming live, so following our presentation, please make sure to go to the back, to the mic and ask questions, and make sure to put your phones on silent mode. Now, for those who are in this industry for a long time, you guys all know about ICAO's difficult acronyms and even more difficult explanations sometimes. For example, today's presenter, Tim Adams, he's ICAO's technical expert, Regional Safety Oversight Organization Office for the Air Navigation Bureau. How am I supposed to remember this? I said no more. From now on, we should refer to him as God of Thunder because of his rugged good looks. And not only that, every time he enters a room, we should play AC/DC's Thunderstruck, right? Now, your mission today, should you accept to do so, is to help demystify GASOS, or the Global Aviation Safety Oversight System, and the program. And the presentation will be given in English. So please help welcome God of Thunder. Thank you.
Thanks very much. AC/DC would have been great as I walked up. It was a short distance, but that would have been fantastic. So again, my name is Tim Adams, and we're here today to talk about GASOS, or the Global Aviation Safety Oversight System. So some of the things that we're kind of going to cover today is just the current situation that we're in right now. We're going to look at regional solutions and why we need to evolve with the future. And then we'll get into the nitty-gritty details of what is GASOS, what we hope to achieve with it, and then talk about the entire system and the benefits that everyone will have, both states, regional safety oversight organizations, and ICAO as well. So the current state of play. What do I mean by this? Kind of just the issues at hand right now. Many states continue to struggle meeting their safety oversight obligations. And this becomes increasingly more difficult as ICAO implements or 500 to amendments or new provisions, I'm sorry, amendments to provisions or new provisions on a yearly basis. And we know this as we looked at the effective implementation score. It continually hovers right around 65%, although we do see nominal increases of about 1% on a regular. We also know, excuse me, that states have limited financial and technical resources. So a lot of times they look to other states or regional organizations for help. Now, ICAO continues to support these regional solutions. However, they too continue to face some challenges on their own. So here, I absolutely love this slide for those that just saw it live and those that get to see it constantly on the screen. ICAO continues to support the regional solutions, and they've been working with states to emphasize this, to really help improve states' safety deficiencies. When you look at this slide, it really represents all the colors, the blue, the green, and the purple. That means about 80% of states are somehow involved in a regional solution. So that's approximately 160 member states that look to or support, as I said, regional involvement. Now, we know with the way technology is coming today and lots of changes into the environment, and probably you've seen some of these slides before, yesterday and today, especially the one on the left of the screen. No matter what crisis the world faces, aviation continues to prosper. And we're seeing expected rates of double air traffic in the next 15 years. So that, coupled with the new technologies coming into the system, remote piloted aircraft systems, not to mention space transport, extra things being thrown in. You've got things like performance-based navigation and datacom. It's all extra things that just make it more difficult for states to manage their safety oversight obligations. So therefore, we kind of need to, as I mentioned, oops, I went too far. We need to evolve how we conduct safety oversight. And this basically gets us into what GASOS is all about. So GASOS is a system designed by ICAO to assess, recognize, and continuously monitor the competence of a safety oversight organization known as SOOs. This is kind of a new term, so for today's purposes, when I talk about an SOO, that means it can be a state CAA, it can be a regional safety oversight organization, or we've also introduced accident investigation organizations as well as safety management organizations. So GASOS will help provide. Oh, hello, it's me live. I lost my stream. Thank you. the joys of live theater or live talk. GASOS will provide states with a global range of solutions for delegating safety functions or activities. So how does all of this happen? We'll kind of get into the details a little bit, but I want to kind of go back to that first bullet where I talked about how we assess an organization. So the idea is to use kind of a USOAP methodology. We've taken those protocol questions and broken them down a little bit to figure out how we can really assess an organization rather than just the ability to do it for yourself, but also the ability to do it for someone else. And as I just mentioned, we'll get into the kind of the details of how that works a little bit later. But as I mentioned, so GASOS provides states with a global range of solutions. So by doing this, you're able to pool your resources, both financial and technical. You have a recognition method from ICAO that's done the assessment, and states can look for a particular safety function that maybe your state's not that great at. And you might be able to find a best practice or get help from someone else to varying degrees of delegation, which we'll talk about in just a minute as well. And then the results allow for a more efficient and effective use to limited resources and greater harmonization and standardization worldwide. So what do we hope to achieve with GASOS? It's pretty simple. We hope to strengthen state safety oversight capabilities. And as I mentioned, this is kind of done by providing a list of options to choose from on particular safety functions. And then we hope to make SOOs more effective and efficient. This is done by creating a set of criteria. You heard me mention the USOAP methodology, PQs. Well, by establishing that set of criteria and then measuring them against that, they actually have some support, some help to go and, you know, especially if it's a regional safety oversight organization, they have a report to go back to and basically say, okay, this is where we need to strengthen. These are the things we need from our member states. We need to maybe set some sort of terms or MOU up a little bit better, and it just gives a little more strength to them. So now the details of GASOS as a system. If you start up at the top there where it says apply for recognition, this is the most important part because it's voluntary. No one is saying that you have to do it. So a state can select to come in, or a regional safety oversight organization might want to volunteer. And so they then submit an application, which we hope will eventually be all online. And the basic application has some very pertinent information. You have to, one, select the safety functions to which you want to be assessed against. And then you also have to submit some basic budget information, funding criteria, then ICAO will look at and see if you meet the basic requirements for an assessment to be done. And then, going over to ICAO, And then into the actual assessment piece of it, ICAO then puts together a team based upon what the state or SOO may be asking for. And from there, a team is formed and they do an on-site assessment, very similar to a USOAP audit. And then the goes to, depending upon the results of the assessment, if they are found to be competent to perform these functions on behalf of another state, or then they go into a directory, a GASOS directory. And then that allows states and also industry and other stakeholders to look to see what these GASOS recognized entities are capable of performing. So I mentioned previously about the levels of delegation. The first level is basic advice and coordination. So this is anywhere from developing basic regulations, manuals, checklists, and guidance material. And it's also easy to coordinate and pool resources, inspectors, or other experts. You essentially act as a facilitator. We see this happening all throughout the world right now, as it is. And then level 2 is operational assistance. This means providing training for inspectors, performing certification and surveillance tasks such as inspections, audits, and reviews. Essentially, this takes you all the way up to the signing of a certificate. So you basically present everything, you do all the work, you hand it over to the state, and then the state actually would sign off on everything. And then level 3 is full delegation. Not to be confused with the transfer of responsibility, which is a topic that continues to come up. It is basically the state maintains the responsibility per the ICAO convention, or the Chicago Convention, excuse me, and then they are only delegating those safety functions to another organization. And that, again, that includes all the way off to like the signature on the certificate. And then, of course, the benefits. So everyone benefits. You have states are able to have the flexibility to choose and combine their resources. If there's a particular safety function that maybe a member state does particularly well, they'll be able to look at the directory and see and maybe go ask and seek for assistance. But at the same time, there may be another safety function that isn't handled well here, and maybe they need to find assistance somewhere else. So it allows them to search a much more greater area, and it gives yeah. So that's sorry, that's the gist for states. For RSOOs, as I mentioned before, you're empowered to strengthen and effectively carry out functions on behalf of states. And I mentioned this is done just by having that set of criteria to actually be measured against. And then for ICAO, well, it certainly helps with increased global safety. It improves the national regional safety oversight capabilities, which we find in the GASP. And then the GASOS concept was regionally endorsed, there we go, in 2017. It began first in Swaziland during the Regional Safety Oversight Organization meeting there, or forum. It received ministerial approval, and then throughout all the various regions, the concept was essentially recognized and agreed to move forward with. So we've done a lot of work since 2017, no doubt, and I will admit we have a lot of work to continue to do. But in October of 2017, we've done a couple of things there. We did a feasibility study, and we've also done a couple of surveys to the regional safety oversight organizations just to figure out you know, is this feasible? Do we have the right resources in place? What more do we need to do? And we recently did a second survey that also went out to all member states. That's going to help a great deal with the business case, and if any of you were in the last Plenary B session, many people brought up a cost-benefit analysis. This is another tool that we'll use, this second survey that just went out, to help us build that, cost-benefit analysis. But in the meantime, between now and the assembly, we recognize there's still a lot of work to be done. Part of that is guidance material, which is a GASOS manual, which will hopefully provide opportunities, help provide guidance for states that might be contracting with other states. What things to look for when working with another state? What legal frameworks do you have to have in place? So hopefully all of that will be outlined in the GASOS manual as well. And then hopefully in January of, well, I can't skip the assembly, so hopefully it'll be endorsed by the assembly in October of 2019, and then hopefully launched in January of 2020, thereabouts. As I mentioned, we recognize there's still a lot of work that needs to be done to get us there. So a couple of key takeaways. So I only mentioned this once, but this is probably the most important thing to recognize and to walk away with, is that under GASOS, states maintain their responsibility. There's no transfer of responsibility at all under GASOS. Second, it's also a voluntary program. So as I mentioned, it's up to a state or a regional safety oversight organization to volunteer to come in for the assessment. There are 3 levels of delegation. The first one is basically facilitation. The second one is operations. And then, of course, the third is full delegation or certification. And then we map the assessment questions, just like the USO PQs. We've taken those, broken them down. We've actually eliminated several of them to be more pertinent to the assessment for GASOS. And then assuming recognition is granted in a specific function, then it's put on a directory. And of course, as I just mentioned, everyone benefits, and aviation is basically enhanced around the world. Oops, wrong button. And I think that ends my presentation. There are many of you in here. I'm expecting several questions, especially, as I mentioned, if you were in Plenary B just a minute ago. But we do have a website. It is icao.int/safety/GASOS. And you can also send questions and things like that into, we do have an email box, which you can find on the website, but it's very simple. It is gasos@icao.int. So with that, does anyone have any questions? Yes, sir. There's a microphone somewhere I think they want you to go to, right over there if you can.
I need to make a presentation.
By all means, come on up.
I've got 2 questions. The first one is why? Why GASOS? And then the second one is there, I see a conflict between GASOS as well as the regional safety oversight organizations, unless maybe I don't understand the role of each, unless GASOS is meant to replace the RSOOs. Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you for your question. So I'll take the second one first, if I may, I think. No, it is not meant to replace RSOOs at all. In fact, it's a program to boost RSOOs, if you will, or give them more credibility. If you think about the way I tend to phrase it is, if you think of the way a state is audited under USOP, you have a program to do that, right? You go in, you say, okay, here there's certain criteria that we're auditing you against, and whether or not you're meeting the standard of recommended practices. We don't have a program like that for RSOOs. And RSOOs, so they, I mean, in their name, regional, they support many states. We need, what we're looking to do is have a mechanism similar to USOAP that goes in and basically assesses that regional safety oversight organization to see what their effectiveness is on supporting those member states. So it is in no way to get rid of RSOOs. It is actually a mechanism to give them more credibility, give them tools and resources to take back to their member states to say, we need your help in order for us to do this for you. And then in doing that, I forgot the first part of your question. I'm sorry. Why? Oh, why? Why GASOS? Well, so, and I kind of sped through that in my presentation, so I apologize. But as I mentioned, there's so much with the increase of, or what is expected to increase the air traffic, it's supposed to be doubled in the next 15 years. Lots of new technology coming at us. You look across the USOAP levels of the audits of the states, we see that many states continue to struggle. You see an average EI score of 65%. And we know that with everything new coming into the system that's already extremely complicated, we need to evolve the way we kind of conduct safety oversight. It's, again, pushing more towards a regional collaboration rather than state-specific. In the back, yes.
Thank you very much for the presentation. The question I have at this stage is, you know, these programs, we can do them, but at the end, they must cost something. I'm just wondering, this program says it's voluntary, but at the end, it will need to be funded. Who's going to be funding GASOS? Thank you.
Excellent question. At this point, so, and those of you may have seen the survey already, probably got what many of us call sticker shock. Just the first proposal of GASOS, you know, was pretty significant. And it's based on a, right now, on a cost recovery mechanism where basically anyone that volunteers to be assessed, you pay for it. Now, with that said, that's not the only mechanism that we're looking at. We realize that right now, the way it's costed and priced is very, very expensive. So we are looking at alternative ways right now to help fund that. And even essentially, if we could and can make it free to regional safety oversight organizations and states, by all means, that would be our intent. Have we gotten there? No. That's part, I think, of why we sent out the second survey, to kind of get a feel what organizations would be willing to pay for, or how much they'd be willing to pay, how much are they paying right now annually on out of their budget for delegating functions, just to kind of give us kind of a baseline to start with, and then start looking at other opportunities to help lower those costs to get to zero, essentially. Certainly.
So just on the previous point, so if the regional organizations are going to pay for this, right, that's sort of bringing it closer to commercializing it. Have you looked at the legal aspects of that at all, what that would mean for ICAO?
Yes. In fact, we have. We've done some outside legal work as well on this, and as I don't know if you were in plenary B, but someone actually recommended that the ICAO's legal bureau provide some interpretation or assistance in reaching that answer to your point. That is something we continue to work with the legal bureau inside and finding that solution. And we do have other programs similar to that today within ICAO. So we're just trying to figure out how best to get there to make sure there are no legal implications to ICAO. Mm-hmm. Anyone else? There's got to be more. We should have played AC/DC. Are we sure? Oh, okay, there we go. See, I know that you always got to ask a third time.
I have to use the mic because of the transmission, right?
Yes, please.
Good afternoon, everybody. I'm wondering, do you foresee any conflicts with Article 83 bis, or will probably at the end of the day Article 83 bis become redundant because of GASOS? What is your view?
So my understanding, and I am in no way the expert on 83 bis, but kind of as I mentioned before, 83 bis is a full transfer of responsibility. So if through an 83 bis I transfer my responsibility to you, and therefore you are responsible for anything at that point that we've agreed to. GASOS does not transfer that responsibility at all. So 83 bis would still be relevant because under GASOS, I keep my responsibility for anything that I've delegated. You're basically providing a service for me, but I'm ultimately responsible for that. Does that answer your question? Okay. Anyone else? Maybe you can get out and get an extra little sandwich or something. I know, during lunch. Oh, yes, go ahead. Yes, unfortunately.
So, okay, if it works for RSOOs and states, what about commercial entities? There's been a lot of talk of states actually disagreeing that commercial entities should be involved in this.
Right, certainly. So initially, the study group did look at other entities, and it was agreed upon that at current state of play, commercialization or commercial entities, private entities, would be taken out of the scope right now. You know, we've talked about in the paper that was presented here during the Air Navigation Conference, it does talk about a phased approach with, you know, perhaps only starting with RSOOs and states and seeing what we learn from there before we even take on the possibility of a private entity. Okay, certainly. Anyone else? Those people in the back? What a crowd. Yes, I know. Everyone's going to get to go out and get more food. No questions in the back? I know it's a little dark back there for me to see, so. Good. All right, well, I'll conclude unless, nope, going once, going twice. All right, that's it for me. Thank you all very much, and have a great rest of the conference.